Okay. Maria, do you want to introduce me or do I introduce myself? How does this work?
You can introduce yourself. My name is Maria Turney. I'm one of the directors for our charter schools, and we have the pleasure of having this presentation done by my aunt, Eileen Wirth. Dr. Wirth is very, very experienced. She's worked in journalism, she's volunteered, she's worked at the university, and one of her giftings is counseling people and making career choices and educational path choices. And so she's here to share some of her wisdom with us today.
Hi, everybody. How many people, since I can't see you, how many people am I talking to? And tell me a little about yourself, and then I'll talk about myself. We have, what, a half hour? Is that correct?
Yes, so we have all of our panelists up here. So we are a part of the transition team here at Yosemite Valley and Monarch River. And then we also have attendees, and they're not on to talk because it's a webinar. So they can listen and they can see what's going on, and they can ask questions if they would like. But those of us who are on with you right now, who are talking and are on video, are part of the transition team. So my name is Eva Marie Salis, and I'm one of the transition teachers. And then I'll let our other two introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Kios. I'm agency linkage specialist and job coach.
I'm Elizabeth Lakey. I'm also a transition teacher. And then we have Maria, of course, you know, and then also our, like Eva Marie described, our attendees can't hop on the mic at the moment.
Okay. Okay, so this is obviously a little bit more casual than any of us had hoped for it. I do apologize that my machine will not let me do video. I'm going to talk for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I want to let you guys jump in with questions. Is that all right? And,
yes, that's okay, and no problem.
We each do talk for like 5 or 10. Are we each talking or what? I just am a little unsure.
It's just your presentation. So whatever you would like to share, we also record this session because some students were not able to attend. And so we send out the recording to them as well. So just go ahead and share whatever you'd like to share. You can take the whole time if you'd like.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Maria. Okay, as Maria said, I'm her aunt. And I'm a professor emeritus of journalism at Creighton University in Omaha, where I spent 25 years. Before that, I was a newspaper reporter and did corporate public relations. My favorite thing during my 25 years of teaching was mentoring students, and I especially enjoyed meeting with prospective students, most of them high school kids, but occasionally even a middle school student. And I got asked a lot of the questions that I think might be relevant to your students. And I want to, anytime you have a question, just hop in. I'm pretty casual, as you can probably tell. The first thing I guess I wanted to say is that when I would ask students, usually high school kids doing the college search, what were they going to major in? They almost all had some idea, you know, especially an open house. You'd get a 12-year-old who was going to be a brain surgeon and a major league baseball player, and they were going to do them both. And how did they get ready to do both? And you would sit there and kind of roll your eyes. But the truthful answer for most incoming freshmen at most universities is that they are undecided. And even if they tell you that they are going to be a forensic pathologist, they don't have a clue what that means. And so my first piece of advice is to encourage your students to be open-ended and open-minded. That ties in with the other major point that I want to make, which is that the economy for many years has been changing so fast that I often taught students who came in as freshmen and got jobs 4 years later that hadn't even existed. I particularly remember the year that all of a sudden everybody was doing web pages and computer graphics. And my department had a very strong program in that. And all of a sudden, every business and every nonprofit had to have a webmaster. So I was getting frantic calls from employers saying, I need a webmaster. Can you send me one? And they'd say, I know it's January or February, but do they really have to stay that last semester and graduate? I mean, that's how desperate they were to get people with the skill to fill a job that had literally not existed when those students came in. And I think if anything, we're going to see that accelerating more. I've also seen the converse. I've seen jobs that were mainstays of the economy virtually disappear under technology. I remember when I worked at Union Pacific Railroad as a corporate public relations person, we had an entire floor of our headquarters building that was filled with bookkeepers. And bookkeeping was a very popular course in high school. When I was in high school back when dinosaurs walked the earth, in the early 60s. And now it's all done on a machine, computers. I don't think anybody probably, they study accountant, and we will always need accountants. But the idea of having hordes and masses of people sit there and write stuff down in accounting logs is crazy. Nobody would do it like that. So I think the thing to remember when you are advising students or you're a student yourself is you have no idea what the job market is going to look like in the quick 4 years that you are in college and the 40 years that you are going to be employed. Does anybody have any questions or any comments about that?
I don't have a question. I just think you bring up such great points about jobs. And I just loved that concept of preparing for jobs that don't exist yet. It's very,
what about
very
the rest of you? I mean, it's pretty incredible.
I think it can connect to changing your mind kind of about what you want to do. As your job is, to explore the world around you and to figure out what you like and what you're good at and how you can help serve your community. And then as you get old, you kind of refine that. But when I went into college, I was studying biological systems engineering. I love science. I thought problem solving is really interesting to me. But as I got a job in an office, I realized that while the content of that was fascinating to me, I like people and I like actually helping real people I can see on a regular basis. And so I changed my major in a big way in college to go into the education field. But it was scary because I think there had been all these expectations, this talk about what I wanted to do. And I think it's good that you bring it up, Aunt Eileen or Dr. Wirth, because I think a lot of people feel like when they commit to something, they have to do it or they'll lose face, or they've spent some time on it and they don't want to have wasted those 2 years or whatever it was that they spent, but it's very normal.
Yes. Well, okay. The university where I taught has a medical school, dental school, pharmacy, PT, OT, and it's basically a pre-health sciences. That's university. That's its bread and butter. But we also had very strong arts and sciences. But we managed to attract students. It's a private university run by the Jesuits, highly esteemed. But we managed to attract students mostly who were thinking of health science careers. But then they would take organic chemistry. Now, I was the chair of what was then called the journalism department, and now I forget the name they've given it. But it reflects the fact we merged with computer science because everything is so digital, and hardly anybody ever picks up a print newspaper. I mean, our field changed incredibly. But I used to be really good buddies with the major teacher of organic chemistry, because that was kind of make or break for kids who came as pre-meds or thought they were going to be pre-meds. And then they said, who, me, be a dentist? And it was very important to my university to have other fields that they could steer students with in order to retain them. Which brings me to another major point that I want to make, and that is when students start their college search, which I think you should start thinking about college as early as freshman year, get a little more serious your sophomore year, and by junior year, you should be hard at it. But when you start thinking about college, I think you need to look at what university is going to be a place where you would be happy overall, and never pick a college just based on the fact that you think you want to be a jazz musician and XYZ college or university has an outstanding jazz program. Because chances are very, very high that you'll do like Maria did and like I did and change your major. At the beginning of my sophomore year, I changed my major 3 times in one semester before I finally landed as a very happy journalism major. And I'm guessing that the rest of you may have done something similar. You want to talk about it if you did?
I would love to share, Dr. Wirth. My background actually is in human resources. I don't know if some of my teammates know that, but I had this mindset when I went to college that I knew I liked working with people. I knew I liked training people. So I went into business. I also like business. I have a very entrepreneurial spirit. So I went into human resources, and after some time there, I realized I actually worked for the California community colleges at the time, but I discovered that I actually enjoyed I enjoyed working with youth more. One of the things I just would like to share with our students or listeners is that a lot of times there's overlap. Hey, I could have probably made it work training in human resources because I'm working with people. We also had student workers there, and I that was kind of how I discovered it. Was I loved working with the student workers. And then on my free time, I found myself donating my time to youth causes, and I'm like, okay, and so I think there's that overlap. Coming from the Job Corps program, I remember a mentor of mine used to tell students that it used to be your great grandpa or grandma would work in a factory, and that was it for the next 50, 60 years. That has certainly changed. And I tell people still when they ask me, hey, what is it you do? It's a joke. I say, I'm still figuring it out. I feel like I've found a home in education, but here I am. I won't tell you guys how old I am, but I'm going back to school for my credential. We'll just say I'm in my late 30s, and I'm going back to school for my credential. Now, work with a lot of youth, never had the opportunity to. So,
yeah, well, I'm in what I jokingly think of as my 4th career, having retired 6 years ago. I spent 11 years as a newspaper reporter, went into corporate PR for 8 years, taught college students for 25, and now that I'm retired, I am a full-time, I'm self-employed. I'm a writer, and I do PR volunteer work. And I think of it as another career. The point of it is, in this day and age, you had better be prepared to change constantly. And that brings me to another piece of wisdom that I will share, or at least I hope it's wisdom. And that is when you're looking at how on earth do you get ready for a career that is probably going to stretch 40 or more years. And the technology has changed incredibly in the 47 years of my paid employment to what it is now. How on earth are today's students going to anticipate it? And the answer is, I don't think they can. The internet changed absolutely everything. When I started as Creighton in 1991, believe it or not, that was before the internet. And I was working on my PhD in teaching, and I had two little kids when the internet and email came in. And my dad, Maria's grandfather, who was a technology nut, kept saying, "You've got to get on email." And I said, "Dad, I am too busy. I don't have time to master one more thing." And of course, now, I mean, how silly. It took 5 minutes. But the point of it is, I can remember the world without cell phones and without email and let alone social media. I mean, the world is going to be different. So how do we get students ready, and what do students do to get ready? Well, I think it really helps if we think about things that have not changed or things that are going to continue. And as students are preparing for college, and when they get into college trying to decide what to study, I think it's good to look at what goes on. A skill I'm obviously very fond of, because it's put bread on my table for my whole life, is writing. There is no field and no form of technology that will not reward people who are good writers. So I strongly recommend to students that in high school, they load up on all the English and writing heavy courses that they can. Even people who think that Twitter is the equivalent of Shakespeare are going to discover that there are good tweets and bad tweets. But I think you cannot go wrong by mastering grammar. Now, I know that sounds a little weird in this day and age, because who on earth diagrams sentences or even learns the parts of speech? But I can tell you from experience in placing students in jobs, those who have sound fundamentals in writing will be rewarded, and those skills never go away. So I would prioritize the ability to communicate in writing, but also orally. People make judgments on you based on how well you speak. If you speak with standard English grammar, you will be rewarded for that. There are other things. Now, I think in this day and age, and here's why I'm saying what you should do, not what I did. Everybody in this day and age needs to have a somewhat analytical capability. I'm just astonished at that skill is required in absolutely everything in this digital age. People don't want you saying, "Well, I think this works." It's prove it. How do you prove it? You have got to know statistics and analytics. Those are based on math. Math has been with us since the ancient Egyptians and the Phoenicians and the Greeks. So I think the two most basic fields, literacy and mathematics, are things students really need to focus on. Now, they can branch out for them. Social sciences are basically based on those two things. I was a journalism political science major at a time, and my PhD is actually in poli-sci, when poli-sci was more about politics. Now, I don't think I could make it through the intro course because it is mostly quantitative. But I think students, even if they're basically verbally oriented, have got to accept the fact that the careers of the future are going to demand capability in quantitative fields. Now, beyond that, another really basic component of your education has got to be mastering working with others. That's not a major, but it is an essential skill in every field I know. Certainly, you educators know that better than anybody. But you were talking about human relations, corporate work. People who know how to organize and people who know how to work effectively with others, people who know how to be good team players. You can hone those skills in college courses. business colleges, communications programs. You don't have to major in those, but you really ought to consciously seek out courses that are going to give you some background in those fields or
I think-
skills. Does
I think
anybody
that's
have any
a
questions
point.
or comments?
Yeah, I was talking to a colleague of mine who's not in education. She does programming for 3D VR type of stuff, and she was interviewing for positions at Google, and she told me, you know what they really need are people who have people skills. They have a lot of really intelligent people who apply for programming, but they need someone who can run a team of other programmers, or someone who knows how this could apply in in a different field. For example, she was working for Wayfair. They have all this furniture that they sell, and part of her job was programming virtual reality experiences so that when clients were envisioning furniture in their home, they would have a better experience. So that required her not only to know about programming, but also how to serve people who are decorating homes, and so it's this cross field understanding. I think that there's a big gap there a lot of times, and someone with people skills can bridge that gap.
Yeah, and I know of an engineer, a woman engineer, who was one of the first. She had a woman-owned engineering firm here in Omaha, and it was highly successful. And so I asked her. This is when women engineers were really unusual, and I asked her what was the secret of her success when I was a reporter, and she said, "I was an English major." Okay, I'm going, all right. Yeah, she was also very good at math, and but she double majored in engineering and English, and her ability to write allowed her to make proposals that could be understood by an MBA. And she got a lot of business because she knew how to communicate. So sometimes I don't think we appreciate the liberal arts the way we should. One thing about liberal arts, they don't have to, you can major in something, that sounds a little more careerist, but those liberal arts courses will stand you in good stead forever. One of the challenges that we faced as a pre-professional or as a career-oriented department was how to give students an education that was going to last them a lifetime while giving them specific skills that would help them get a job right out of school. And we fell back on the liberal arts, which our university required. And it's just, I think, is it to encourage students, the thing I guess I would hope you would do would be to encourage students not to narrow their choices too soon, because the world is a great, big, wonderful place, and it's changing all the time. And some things have lasted, and there's a reason they've lasted. So I think when kids are really kind of depressed, as they often are, I've been a freshman, they arrive at college, and I'd get kids coming into my office, and they would say, "Oh, Dr. Wirth, I am just an undecided person, and I don't know what to do, and can you help me," etc. And I would say, relax. Truthfully, the right answer for everyone entering college should be that you are undecided for at least that first year. The purpose of college is to expand your horizons, to discover fields that you don't know anything about. My university had a large core that kids complained about, and they were forced to take classes in fields that they were going, philosophy, I don't care about philosophy, but philosophy had a way of forcing them to think logically, and it opened their minds. Maybe they took a psych course. Everybody, of course, takes psych, but they took a psych course just because, well, their friend was taking it. And all of a sudden, it opened whole worlds to them. I think if I were advising parents and educators, it would be to tell your kids, it's really a good idea to be undecided until about at least your sophomore year in college, when you can start to get into a major or select a career field. And I also think I would strongly advise students as they are thinking of colleges to look not only at majors, but look at the gen ed requirements, the core requirements. And if they don't have any, that would concern me. Any comments or questions?
Honestly, working with kids at the high school level in transition, where we're talking about jobs and careers, and we're talking about post-secondary education options, this was just all really helpful. And I took notes about some of your advice, because I feel like it was really, really good. I really appreciate it. It helps us as teachers as well.
I completely agree. And even focusing on some of those soft skills, those communication skills, those, leading a team or being able to work with people, because there's a lot to be said about those hard skills that people have. But also, if you're not able to communicate or be friendly or, talk to people, that's really going to be difficult when you're trying to move forward in a career. So yeah, I think this is awesome information here for our students.
I have just one or two other suggestions. If you possibly can, I would look and ask at a university's advising program. And I don't just mean the Career Center where they turn you loose on computers. Do they have actual humans who will advise you and talk you through your dilemmas? Now, a lot of places say, oh, we don't need advisors. Everybody can look up what courses are on the internet and they can make their own schedules. I think having a strong advising program is one of the most important services a university can offer. So if I were having a checklist for places to consider, assuming you can afford to make choices, and that's a big if, I would see what kind of advising services they offer, because you're entering a whole new and very confusing world. And especially in California, you're going to have a lot of first generation college students who can't just go home to mom and dad who have a college degree and can explain everything to you. Or like when my daughter went to my university, I worked her and her friends. Her friends got out among her high school friends that if they called Dr. Wirth, I could pick not only what classes would be good, but I knew the best teachers. So, but if you don't, you need somebody, an older person, preferably a professional advisor or faculty mentor, somebody who can help you. The other thing I strongly advise looking at is how much opportunity does an institution give you to have internships and hands-on exposure to fields you're considering. That was one of the things that was terribly important in my own background. Journalism was a great field because there were always people who needed students to help. And I got nearly all of my students into internships, and it made a big difference. They would come back to me and say, I thought I wanted to work for a television station, but I hated it because all they did was go shoot car crashes. And then they would find something else. I knew students who didn't know for sure until they did a nursing practicum that what they really wanted to do was to be a nurse, or until they shadowed somebody that they really thought they would love being an occupational therapist, something they'd never heard of in high school. So the more opportunities that an institution offers for internships, working in labs alongside professors, if you have science-oriented kids, the better the kids are going to be able to make a good decision about what to study and to know about what the opportunities are, and to know faculty members who will help them get to that next step. I think we have, what, a half hour? And I probably have exhausted or gone beyond. but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions if you have any.
It looks like we're right at the end of that time. You actually had perfect timing. Unless anybody has any more questions, we just really appreciate all of your thoughts and advice. And like I said, I took notes and will definitely be using this recording as well as your ideas in the future in working with our students. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do this for us.
Well, I
Yes.
am absolutely delighted, and I'm sorry that I had to do it by phone
That's okay.
instead of by
No
Zoom,
worries.
but at least we got it done. So
Yes.
it's been a great, Maria, thank you for asking me, and
Yes,
for
thank
the
you, Maria.
three of you, thank you so much. I enjoyed being with you, and I bet it's a lot warmer where you are than it is in Omaha.
Definitely. Well, we just so appreciate your time and your experience and your knowledge. It's invaluable. So we just appreciate it, and we will apply it. And hopefully you'll want to come talk to us again next year. We would appreciate it.
Oh, I would love to. I would
Oh,
love
yay.
to, and we'll figure out the Zoom thing ahead
Yeah.
of time then.
Sounds
Okay?
good.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.